The story begins with something as small and ordinary as a voice message, a simple notification on the phone, nothing unusual. But the moment the play button was pressed, life as it was known shattered into 1,000 pieces. On the screen, the sender's name appeared. Grace. A daughter, a child raised with love, sacrifice, and dreams of a better future. At first, there was no reason to be suspicious. Perhaps it was a reminder about dinner, or a request to prepare Richard's favorite pineapple dessert. But within seconds, that familiar voice revealed words so cruel they froze the blood in the veins. Ricardo, I can't take having my mother in this house anymore. She's a nuisance. She gets into everything. She costs us too much money. I've been looking into some cheap places. I found one for just $800 a month. The phone nearly slipped from shaking hands. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be Grace. The same little girl once walked to school in hand-me-down shoes polished until they shone. The young woman who had been clothed and fed through decades of exhausting housework. But it was her voice. Cold, sharp, detached. And then came the words that cut deeper than any knife. I already checked the house papers. It's in her name. But I found a way to transfer it to ours without her noticing. Carol's going to help me. In a month, Mom will be in the home, and we'll own everything. We can finally live in peace without that bitter old woman controlling us. Every syllable was like the ground falling away. The one possession that meant everything. The home built brick by brick with sweat and sacrifice. The place of safety, the last anchor in old age, was being plotted against by the very person it was meant to protect. And then there was laughter. A cruel, careless laugh at the end of the message, as though throwing a mother into a care home and stealing her life's work was no more serious than a joke. If you've ever felt the deepest betrayal from someone you love, you know that kind of pain, the kind that steals your breath, bends your back, and makes you question everything you ever believed about love and family. The phone stayed in hand for a long time. The message replayed again and again, each repetition confirming the truth, each word like another dagger in the heart. Grace thought her plan was perfect. She thought her mother was blind, naive, and powerless, that she could smile sweetly in the daylight and steal everything in the shadows. But what Grace didn't know was that her mother had already survived a lifetime of hardship, and this time, she was ready to fight back. Some lives aren't measured in birthdays or photographs. They're measured in the things your hands have touched, the hours you've bent your back, the quiet sacrifices no one applauds. Mine could be counted in uniforms stitched at midnight, in shoes polished until they gleamed like hope, in long shifts scrubbing houses that were never mine. From the age of 19, when Grace was born, my life had one direction only. Forward, for her. Her father vanished like fog in the morning. One day he promised a wedding. The next, his family slammed their door in my face. But my own mother, Grace's grandmother, stood firm. I can still hear her voice, sharp and steady as her needle against fabric. Margaret, family is everything. You give until the last drop. That is love. She sold her only jewelry, 2 slim gold bracelets, to buy the cradle where Grace first slept, and I worked. God, how I worked. Houses that smelled of bleach and lemons, aching knees from 12-hour days, $20 at a time slipped into envelopes labeled tuition, shoes, books. When Grace turned 5, I walked her to kindergarten in a uniform crisp from my iron, her shoes so polished they reflected the sky. The other mothers stepped out of cars with tinted windows, handbags that cost more than my month's pay. I stood there in a patched dress and calloused hands. But when Grace leaned up to kiss my cheek and whispered, "Thank you, Mommy. You're the best," I thought I could carry the whole world if it meant she could walk free of its weight. The years blurred in rhythm. Rise at 4, pack breakfast, walk her to school, clean 3 houses before sunset, help with homework, read a story, collapse, repeat. On Sundays, my day off, I washed other people's laundry for a few extra bills. My body broke down in ways I didn't admit, but my will never cracked. When she turned 15, I pawned my mother's sewing machine, the last thing I had of her, to help pay for the quinceañera. The party cost $3,500. Money I should have used to fix our leaking roof. But when Grace spun in her golden dress, light catching her smile, I told myself leaks can wait. A daughter's joy cannot. College came, and with it numbers that didn't add up. $15,000 a year when I earned $400 a month. So I did the impossible. Mortgaged the house I had built brick by brick. Sold the engagement ring her father once gave me. Sold even the last bracelet my mother had kept hidden from me. You'll study, I told Grace at the admissions desk, tears blurring the ink as she signed. You'll never scrub floors like me. Every exam, every book, every set of presentation clothes, I paid for with overtime, skipped meals, and sleepless nights. And when she walked across that stage in her cap and gown, I thought I was watching the return on my life's greatest investment. She hugged me after, tears in her eyes. Mom, this is as much yours as it is mine. I believed her. Then came the wedding. She wanted something elegant, like in the magazines. $8,000 for the venue, $2,000 for the dress, hundreds more for flowers and music, $10,000 in total. Money I didn't have, but I borrowed. I sold. I emptied what was left of my small jewelry box, because hadn't my mother taught me? Family is sacrifice. Family is everything. I smiled through the whole ceremony. The cake was sweet, her laughter sweeter. Richard looked at her like a man in love, and for a moment I thought, finally, stability, security. I've given her the world. What I didn't know, as I clapped and wiped away tears, was that the bill I thought I was paying for her future wasn't an investment at all. It was the down payment on something else entirely. I thought I'd bought our future. Turns out, I prepaid my betrayal. Some lives aren't measured in birthdays or photographs. They're measured in the things your hands have touched, the hours you've bent your back, the quiet sacrifices no one applauds. Mine could be counted in uniforms stitched at midnight, in shoes polished until they gleamed like hope, in long shifts scrubbing houses that were never mine. From the age of 19, when Grace was born, my life had one direction only, forward, for her. Her father vanished like fog in the morning. One day he promised a wedding. The next, his family slammed their door in my face. But my own mother, Grace's grandmother, stood firm. I can still hear her voice, sharp and steady as her needle against fabric. Margaret, family is everything. You give until the last drop. That is love. She sold her only jewelry, 2 slim gold bracelets, to buy the cradle where Grace first slept. And I worked. God, how I worked. Houses that smelled of bleach and lemons. Aching knees from 12-hour days, $20 at a time slipped into envelopes labeled tuition, shoes, books. When Grace turned 5, I walked her to kindergarten in a uniform crisp from my iron, her shoes so polished they reflected the sky. The other mothers stepped out of cars with tinted windows, handbags that cost more than my month's pay. I stood there in a patched dress and calloused hands. But when Grace leaned up to kiss my cheek and whispered, "Thank you, Mommy. You're the best," I thought I could carry the whole world if it meant she could walk free of its weight. The years blurred in rhythm. Rise at 4, pack breakfast, walk her to school, clean 3 houses before sunset, help with homework, read a story, collapse, repeat. On Sundays, my day off, I washed other people's laundry for a few extra bills. My body broke down in ways I didn't admit, but my will never cracked. When she turned 15, I pawned my mother's sewing machine, the last thing I had of her, to help pay for the quinceañera. The party cost $3,500, money I should have used to fix our leaking roof. But when Grace spun in her golden dress, light catching her smile, I told myself leaks can wait. A daughter's joy cannot. College came, and with it numbers that didn't add up. $15,000 a year when I earned $400 a month. So I did the impossible. Mortgaged the house I had built brick by brick, sold the engagement ring her father once gave me, Sold even the last bracelet my mother had kept hidden for me. You'll study, I told Grace at the admissions desk, tears blurring the ink as she signed. You'll never scrub floors like me. Every exam, every book, every set of presentation clothes, I paid for with overtime, skipped meals, and sleepless nights. And when she walked across that stage in her cap and gown, I thought I was watching the return on my life's greatest investment. She hugged me after, tears in her eyes. Mom, this is as much yours as it is mine. I believed her. Then came the wedding. She wanted something elegant, like in the magazines. $8,000 for the venue, $2,000 for the dress, hundreds more for flowers and music, $10,000 in total. Money I didn't have, but I borrowed. I sold. I emptied what was left of my small jewelry box, because hadn't my mother taught me? Family is sacrifice. Family is everything. I smiled through the whole ceremony. The cake was sweet, her laughter sweeter. Richard looked at her like a man in love, and for a moment I thought, finally, stability, security. I've given her the world. What I didn't know, as I clapped and wiped away tears, was that the bill I thought I was paying for her future wasn't an investment at all. It was the down payment on something else entirely. I thought I'd bought our future. Turns out, I prepaid my betrayal. It began innocently. Or at least, that's how it was presented. Mom, they're painting our apartment. It'll just be a couple of weeks. We'll stay with you. It'll be fun. Like old times. The words sounded warm, wrapped in promises of family closeness. A daughter moving back home, even for a short while, might have seemed like a blessing. But blessings don't rearrange your life one drawer at a time. The first week, little things shifted. Plates moved to different shelves. Clothes donated without asking. Mom, these dresses are so outdated. You don't need them anymore. Books stacked in boxes with labels Grace had written herself. At first, it was easy to laugh. You young people and your organizing. But then came the bills. Let me handle these for you, Mom. At your age, you shouldn't be worrying about utilities. The tone was sweet, but behind it, a quiet control was taking root. Bank statements disappeared from the kitchen counter. Envelopes were opened before their rightful owner saw them. Questions replaced independence. Why did you withdraw cash? What do you need it for? Privacy became a guest that no longer lived in the house. Then came the strangers. A knock at the door, a polite smile, a doctor checking blood pressure, a social worker assessing living conditions, even a man with a clipboard calling himself a geriatric care specialist. None of them were invited. All of them were scheduled by Grace. The words they used were carefully chosen, heavy with implication. Early signs of confusion, vulnerable, needs supervision. One doctor even left a note. Mild age-related memory concerns. The words weren't true, but on paper, truth can be manufactured. Each visit chipped away at dignity. And each time Grace would smile afterward, "See, Mom? We're just making sure you're safe." Safe. That word began to feel like a cage. One evening, while trimming the roses in the garden, voices drifted from the patio. Richard's voice, low but sharp. "Yeah, we're already living here." "No, she doesn't suspect a thing. Carol says the papers will be ready in 2 weeks." The she was clear. And the papers, they had to mean more than bills or insurance. When footsteps approached, Richard ended the call with a quick, "Talk later." When asked, his smile was too fast, too thin. "Just my boss, work stuff." But the seed had already sprouted. The house didn't feel like home anymore. Every corner hummed with suspicion. Conversations hushed when footsteps entered a room. Laughter stopped the moment a shadow crossed the doorway. The kitchen, once full of comfort, felt like a place where secrets were cooked instead of meals. At night, sleep didn't come easily. Instead, thoughts raced. Was all of this paranoia, or was love being rewritten into something darker? The answer arrived one ordinary afternoon, disguised as another sound. Not whispers from the patio, not a doctor's patronizing words. Something far simpler. A notification sound. One small ping that carried a message meant for someone else. A message that would change everything. It was an ordinary afternoon. The kettle hissed on the stove, and the quiet rhythm of the house seemed unchanged. Then, a small sound. A single notification. The kind that usually brings nothing more than a reminder, or a daughter's quick hello. But this one was different. The screen lit up. A voice message. The sender. Grace. Play. Ricardo. I can't take having my mother in this house anymore. She's a nuisance. She gets into everything. She's costing us money. I've been looking into some cheap places. I found one for $800 a month. The world tilted. Hands went cold. The voice was familiar. Too familiar. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't gossip. It was the voice of the child once held through fevers. The young woman whose tuition was paid with pawn jewelry. The daughter whose wedding was bought with borrowed money and empty cupboards. And she was speaking as though her mother were nothing but a problem to discard. The message rolled on, sharper than any blade. I already checked the house papers. It's in her name. But there's a way to transfer it to ours without her noticing. Carol's helping. In a month, Mom will be in the home. And we'll own everything. We can finally live in peace without that bitter old woman controlling us. The house, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck, wasn't just a structure. It was the proof of sacrifice. The place where birthdays were celebrated, where prayers were whispered, where every wall carried fingerprints of struggle and survival. And now, it was being reduced to paperwork and signatures, plotted away like numbers on a ledger. Then came the sound that burned worst of all. Laughter. A light, careless laugh that floated at the end of the message. As if locking a mother in a home and taking her life's work was nothing but a casual errand. If you've ever felt the deepest betrayal from someone you love, you know that pain. The way it crushes your chest, steals your breath, and makes even your own heartbeat sound like a stranger's. The message ended. Silence filled the room. Once, twice, 3 times the play button was pressed, hoping for a mistake, begging for a kinder version of the truth, but the words never changed. It was all real. The daughter was smiling by day, whispering about guardianship by night, cooking breakfast with one hand, and with the other, signing away the future. That afternoon, grief sat heavy. But as the hours passed, something else stirred. The tears dried. The air felt sharper. Betrayal had cut deep. But beneath the wound was something stronger. Grace thought she had chosen the moment of defeat. She thought her mother's silence meant surrender. She thought age meant weakness. But she forgot the truth. A lifetime of endurance can turn, in an instant, into resolve. At dawn, the crimson suit would be pulled from the closet. Documents would be gathered, and a plan would begin. Because what Grace didn't know was simple. Her mother was ready to fight. Dawn arrived like a decision. I didn't wake to it. I met it at the door, already dressed. The crimson suit slid on like armor. The pearl studs clicked into place like buttons on a map that only I could read. I gathered the folder I kept for important things. Birth certificate, deed, insurance, account numbers written by hand. And I walked out before anyone else stirred. The bank opened at 8. I stood at the door at 7:59, breathing in the quiet of a street that hadn't learned my secret yet. Good morning, Ems? The manager asked, the kind woman who had watched me count out deposits for years. Baker, I said. I need a private room, and I need your full attention. We sat with a glass wall between us and the lobby. I placed my ID on the table, then the letter they claimed I'd signed. The one that supposedly gave Grace access to my accounts to help with bills. I didn't sign this, I said. The manager angled the paper toward the light. It looks close. Close isn't mine. I laid my ID beside it. I never curl my G that way. I don't slant here. And I don't abbreviate my middle name. Someone learned my handwriting the way a thief learns a keyhole. Silence, then a slow, troubled nod. She pulled up the digital record, toggled between screens, compared signatures the way a doctor compares x-rays. You're right, she said at last, voice low. This is not a match. The relief didn't feel like victory. It felt like oxygen. One breath, then another. I need every authorization revoked, I said. Every third-party view, every helpful access. And I want a fraud alert on my profile. If anyone tries to look, to change, to whisper my numbers through a phone line, I want your system to scream. We can lock it down, she said, hands already moving. Two-factor on every access. New online credentials. New debit card. We'll put your accounts on high-risk monitoring. And beneficiaries, I added. They changed today. The screen glowed, waiting. To whom? Not to children who count my breath like a clock they can sell. To a foundation. Golden Hope. I spelled it. Handed her the number I had written last night after a quiet search. Service for seniors left behind by the families who promised to love them. She glanced at me. Are you sure? I'm the surest I've ever been. We spent an hour undressing every place they had put their fingers. New passwords. Long, ugly strings only I could love. Contact information updated. Paper statements turned off. Alerts turned on for every transaction over $20. I moved the small savings I had, $8,750 exactly, into a new account whose name was so plain no one would notice it. Household fund. I typed, then smiled. The house would fund me now, not them. By the time we finished, I could breathe all the way to the bottom of my lungs. The manager printed a summary, slid it across. We'll also flag the forged authorization for investigation, she said. You'll get a call from our fraud department within 48 hours. There's more, I told her. There will be police reports, and there will be a lawyer. I stood, gathered my folder. Thank you for believing a woman when she knows her own name. Her eyes softened. Thank you for knowing it so clearly. I stepped into the morning with a small, fierce joy. Doors that had been opened without my consent were closing with my hand on the handle. Next stop. The county clerk's office. The building always smelled like paper and coffee. Layers of lives stacked and stamped and filed away. I walked in with a cordial smile and something heavier tucked into my purse. A tiny recorder. Its red light ready. I asked for Carol by name. She appeared in the hallway, clutching a folder like a shield. Two bright smile. Two quick eyes. Aunt Margaret. What a surprise. Not really, I said kindly. I'm here to check on my property record. I let the words hang. You've been so helpful to Grace. I thought you could help me. We found a small meeting table near a window. Carol sat, then stood, then sat again. I placed my hands flat, palms warm on the wood. You know, I said, tone light. It's the strangest thing. I heard a voice note yesterday. Sounded like someone I love planning to move me into a home and transfer my house. Said a cousin at the clerk's office would help. Isn't that odd? Her throat worked. She tried a laugh that couldn't find its legs. People talk. You know how families. I know how signatures work, I said gently. I slid a printed copy of my deed across the table. I also know my name. She stared at it like it might bite. And Grace told me you were struggling, that you needed help. She said it was better if help is the word people use when take would sound rude, I said. Carol listened to me. I am not confused. I tapped my temple. I am clear. I am clearer than I've been in months. And I am also recording. Her eyes flicked to my purse. Fear found her posture. I don't want to destroy your life. I continued, still calm. But I will protect mine. So we are going to do two things. You are going to tell me exactly what you filed or plan to file. And then you are going to help me undo every stitch. If you're honest and you help me, maybe today is the day you keep your job. If not, I walk to your supervisor's office, and we let the law listen to your voice with mine. Something in her collapsed. The folder slid from her hands to the table with a whisper of paper. It started with the information request, she said, words tripping over each other. Grace said she needed duplicate deed copies. Then she asked how guardianship affidavits work. She brought a medical statement from some clinic. I didn't ask questions. She wanted to know how to file a notice of transfer if a guardian is appointed. I told her the steps. She brought a form with your signature already on it, which I never signed. I said. I know, she whispered. I knew, but she said you were forgetting things. And she cried, and she said it was for your safety. I told her to wait until a judge, but then she asked about pre-filling data so it would be faster when the time came. I kept my voice steady. What did you pre-fill? Your parcel number. Your name. A draft transfer with blanks. A note on the file that someone from family was assisting due to health concerns. Tears reached her voice. I shouldn't have. I swear, I shouldn't have. I slid a tissue from my purse, placed it near her hand. You're going to print every record, every draft, every email. You'll date it, stamp it, and sign that you gave it to me. Then you're going to add a note to the file. Erroneous draft entries, void. No action permitted without owner in-person verification. You'll lock it with a supervisor code, and you'll write a statement that you were misled, and you regret the entries. She nodded, eyes shining. I can do that. Then do it. I leaned in. And, Carol, if anything has already been filed, we file a correction today. I want a paper trail that screams the truth so loud it scares lies back into their holes. She stood, legs shaky, and vanished into the back. I watched the hallway with a stillness I've only ever felt in church. 10 minutes, 15, 20. The small recorder warmed the lining of my purse like a second heartbeat. She returned with a stack thick enough to bruise. Drafts, she said, laying them out. Internal notes, the deed copy request, the pre-filled transfer, the guardianship inquiry, emails. Her finger hovered over a line. Here, Grace asked about expediting with a medical letter. I replied that a court order is required. I never pushed it through. I exhaled. Good. That's the line between foolish and criminal. Today you step back from it. She drafted the void note as I dictated. She stamped it. She called her supervisor, my eyes on her, my recorder bright in the dark pocket. To add a higher level lock, she said. The supervisor asked a few flat questions. Carol answered them with the tired honesty of someone who has found the ground again. Now, I said softly, one more thing. I slid my phone across, open to the red circle. Repeat after me. I, Carol Rodriguez, confirm that no transfer of Ems Baker's property has been filed, that any draft entries were voided today, and that no action may be taken without Ems Baker's in-person, verified consent. Her voice shook but didn't break. She said the words. I saved the file, labeled it. Clerk, confession, Carol. When it was done, she sagged in her chair. Aunt Margaret, I'm so sorry. I thought I was helping family. You were, I said, gathering the papers into my folder. Now you are helping the right member. Outside, the day had found its heat. I walked to the corner and called the attorney I had looked up the night before, the one with a reputation for keeping wolves from doorsteps. His receptionist said, He's in court at 10. I said, Tell him I have forged authorizations, draft transfer attempts, and a recording that tastes like guilt. I'm 10 minutes away. He made time. The office smelled like paper and coffee, too, but different, sharper, like deadlines and statutes. He listened without interrupting, eyes on mine, pen still. When I finished, he tapped the stack I had laid between us. We'll file a civil suit, he said. Fraud, attempted conversion, elder abuse statutes. We'll notify the bank's fraud unit and the clerk's office for internal investigations. And we'll arrange a same-day psychological evaluation with a hospital specialist to crush any hint of confusion. I'll also prepare a preservation letter to the home they contacted, instructing them to retain all communications. Good, I said. I want it all in daylight. He smiled, not the soft smile of comfort, but the hard smile of a man who's seen bullies learn manners. You brought me a case with legs, he said. By tomorrow, they'll wish they'd never learned to walk. I left with instructions, appointments, next steps written in ink, evaluation at 3 p.m., affidavits to sign, copies to make, a plan that fit together like stones in a wall. For months, I had been moved around like furniture in my own life. Now each step was mine. The sun slid lower as I turned back toward home. My phone buzzed with a message from the hospital confirming the evaluation. Another breath of oxygen. Another door locked. When I reached my gate, the house looked the same. Familiar windows. Familiar tree bending in the same direction. But it felt different. Like the house had leaned a little closer to me and said, finally. Inside, voices drifted from the living room. Grace laughing at something on TV. Richard commenting about the sound. I set my folder gently on the dining table, smoothed my suit, and poured a glass of water with hands that didn't shake anymore. I walked past them with a pleasant smile. Busy day, I said. Errands? Grace asked. Exactly, I answered. The kind that make a person sleep well. She watched me a beat too long, then looked away. Tomorrow would be the day of lawyers and papers and truth on paper. Tonight would be quiet. I picked up my phone, weighed it in my palm, and looked at Carol's recording one more time. Then I looked at my daughter. Grace, I said softly, we'll talk in the morning. She blinked. About what? I smiled the way a locked door smiles when a thief jiggles the handle. About family. Her mouth opened, then closed. I turned, took my folder to my room, and laid it on the bed like a shield. And to Carol, who still hadn't learned how quickly a career can vanish, I had one last sentence ready for the morning, soft as velvet, sharp as a blade. If you help me fix it, I won't end your career today. The lawyer's office smelled of ink and leather, the kind of place where paper wasn't just paper, but a shield or a weapon, depending on whose hands held it. I laid my folder on his desk with the same care a soldier lays down ammunition. Pages slid across the polished wood. Forged authorizations, Carol's stamped drafts, copies of bank withdrawals, and the little recorder still glowing with her trembling voice. He didn't interrupt. He didn't hurry. He read, flipped, underlined, and when he reached the recording, he leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes, listening to every word. Grace's voice filled the room, cold and careless, plotting guardianship like it was a grocery list. When the laughter came at the end, his jaw tightened. Ems Baker, he said finally. This is more than betrayal. This is fraud, conspiracy, and elder abuse. You've handed me a case with roots and branches. It will grow fast if we plant it right. He began sketching a timeline on a legal pad. Civil action for damages. Criminal complaint for forgery and attempted conversion. Preservation letters to the bank, to the clerk's office, even to the care home Grace had contacted. Each branch of the plan had dates beside it, arrows, deadlines. Civil gets you your money back, he explained, tapping one column. Criminal makes sure they face charges they can't brush off as a family misunderstanding. We'll file both. And Carol? I asked. She's already confessed on tape, he said. That makes her vulnerable, but it also makes her useful. If she cooperates further, the DA might spare her the worst. If not, she'll learn what it means to abuse a public office. I watched the lines and arrows take shape. For the first time in months, there was order, evidence stacked neatly, each page weighty with truth. What Grace thought she had hidden in whispers and late-night signatures was now daylight on a lawyer's desk. But he wasn't done. There's one more piece, he said, sliding his glasses down. The heart of their plan is the claim that you're confused, incompetent. We destroy that. We destroy everything else. I've already spoken to Dr. Morales, a geriatric specialist at the General Hospital. He'll see you this afternoon. Full cognitive evaluation. Results notarized and ready within 24 hours. I felt my spine straighten. Good. I'll take every test they put in front of me. He smiled faintly. That's the spirit. They've painted you as a woman fading into confusion. Tomorrow we'll show them you're sharper than ever. The rest of the day became a quiet montage of preparation. Affidavits drafted and signed, copies stamped and bound. My bank printed logs of every withdrawal Grace had made without permission, dates, amounts, each line another nail in their coffin. The clerk's office issued certified void notices, proving no transfer had ever been completed. At 3 o'clock, I walked into the hospital with my head high. Dr. Morales was kind but thorough. Memory tests, problem-solving exercises, questions meant to trip me if confusion truly clouded my mind. I answered every one with clarity born of both practice and pain. When he asked me to recall a series of words 20 minutes later, I repeated them without hesitation. "M. Baker," he said, signing the report. "Your cognitive ability is excellent. In fact, sharper than many half your age. I'll certify that without reservation." The report went straight into the growing folder. Another shield. Another weapon. By evening, the lawyer had arranged the final step. A meeting at my house, in my living room, where Grace and Richard believed they still ruled. But this time, they wouldn't be facing only me. They'd face an attorney, a notary, and 2 uniformed officers. I sat across from him as the sun slipped low, his legal pad full of arrows and deadlines now resting between us like a map of war. "Tomorrow," he said, voice steady. "We don't argue, we demonstrate. We put their lies on the table beside the truth, and we let the law decide which weighs more." I nodded, feeling the crimson suit waiting in my closet, the papers stacked neatly in my bag, and the quiet fire rising in my chest. Tomorrow, we didn't argue, we demonstrated. The morning after the confrontation, silence lingered in the house like dust. But it didn't last. Grace and Richard weren't the kind to retreat quietly. If they couldn't control me inside these walls, they would try to control the world around me. It began online. Posts slipped into community groups, written with the syrupy tone of pity. "Please pray for my mother. She's struggling with dementia and confused. She even accused us of terrible things we would never do. We're heartbroken watching her fade." My face appeared in photographs I never knew were taken. Me watering the garden, staring at a receipt, pausing mid-step at the grocery store, cropped to look vacant, edited to look frail. Captions dripped poison. "This is why she shouldn't be left alone." The comments stung worse than the posts. Strangers with kind hearts, but blind eyes typed, "Poor woman. Thank God she has children who care." Others warned, "Don't let her walk alone. It's dangerous." At night, the phone rang. Anonymous voices slithered through the line. "Crazy old woman. You'll die alone." Another hissed, "Drop the case, or it won't end well." Visitors arrived uninvited. Fake social workers, checking conditions. Salesmen pushing security systems. Even men claiming to be distant relatives, testing my memory with casual questions. Each one rehearsed. Each one designed to make me doubt myself. And then the letters. Folded paper slipped under the door or left in the mailbox. Words crafted to rot self-worth. "You failed as a mother. No wonder your daughter wants nothing to do with you." Another was crueler still. "Everything you worked for means nothing. You'll leave this world unloved." For a time, they succeeded. Nights found me on the kitchen floor, staring at the walls, wondering if perhaps I had made some mistake, if standing up for myself had been cruelty disguised as strength. Then, while searching through my chest of memories, I found a letter written years ago in my mother's frail handwriting. "Margaret, if someone ever tries to hurt you or take advantage of your good heart, remember this. Boundaries are not cruelty. Love does not steal. Respect yourself, even if it means walking alone." The words struck like iron against flint. I felt the spark my mother had known, even then. That love without respect curdles into chains. That to stand up wasn't betrayal, it was survival. I pressed the paper to my chest and let the truth settle. I had not destroyed a family, Grace had. I had only defended the pieces of myself that were still whole. So when the lawyer asked if I wanted to pursue settlement or silence, I already knew my answer. I wouldn't drop the case. I would finish it. Some people think justice arrives with shouting, handcuffs, or courtroom drama. But real justice, it walks in quietly, sits down at the table, and demands receipts. The settlement came first. Grace and Richard, cornered by evidence they couldn't deny, tried to buy their way out of the trial. Their lawyer sent an offer: return every stolen dollar, pay damages, and most importantly, sign a public confession. Not whispered apologies, not misunderstandings. A signed, notarized statement that their accusations of dementia were lies, that their papers were forged, and that their plan had been to strip me of everything. I agreed. Not because I wanted money, but because I wanted the truth in black and white where no smear campaign could touch it. They handed back the $8,750 they had siphoned from my accounts, added $15,000 in damages. And they published their confession in the same community pages where they had painted me as confused. I clipped one copy and tucked it beside my mother's old letter, one for memory, the other for proof. But justice doesn't stop at signatures. It keeps digging. During the investigation, my lawyer uncovered inconsistencies in their tax returns, numbers that didn't match the lifestyle they flaunted, Richard's side jobs tucked away, Grace's online sales hidden from the IRS, the kind of secrets that don't survive sunlight. The audit came like winter, inevitable, cold, and thorough. $22,000 in unpaid taxes, penalties swelling the total to $35,000. They were forced to sell their car, pawn jewelry, and take out loans with interest sharp enough to draw blood, because unlike family, numbers don't love anyone. Their careers dimmed too. Grace's company quietly moved her into a lesser role. No one said it was because of the scandal, but in offices where reputation is currency, whispers spend fast. Richard's supervisor told him bluntly, "If you'd steal from your mother-in-law, how can we trust you with company assets?" His promotion vanished. His future folded into a smaller box, but the heaviest punishment wasn't financial. It was social. Friends stopped calling. Neighbors looked away in grocery aisles. Even Richard's own sister confronted him in public, shouting loud enough for the street to hear. "How could you plan to ruin an old woman who treated you like family?" Their names appeared in the local paper beneath a headline that cut deeper than any fine. Daughter and husband admit attempt to defraud elderly mother. No excuses could soften that truth. Meanwhile, I rewrote my will. Before, everything I owned would have gone to Grace. Now, it will go to those who need it most. Abandoned seniors who, like me, were once told that sacrifice guaranteed loyalty. The Golden Hope Foundation will inherit my house, my savings, my final proof that dignity doesn't die just because family betrays it. And in that decision, I found peace. Not revenge, not hatred, peace. Because justice isn't about watching others fall. It's about standing where they tried to bury you and breathing freely. When people asked me afterward what freedom feels like, I didn't give speeches. I just said the truth. Freedom feels quiet and expensive to those who used you. The house was sold within weeks, not stolen, not seized, but released by my own will. What had once been a sanctuary turned battlefield no longer carried comfort. I wanted walls without echoes, windows without ghosts. So I chose something smaller, simpler, kinder. My new apartment sat on the second floor of a senior community, the kind with flower boxes under windows and neighbors who smiled in the hallway. The rooms were modest, the rent easy, and for the first time in years, I felt space that belonged only to me. Routines shrank to fit peace. Morning coffee on a balcony where birds sang louder than doubts. Afternoons with brushes and paint, letting color say what words could not. Evenings filled with music, my feet learning steps I had never dared try before. At 66, I found myself twirling in dance classes with people who laughed, not judged. Neighbors knocked not to take, but to share. I made too much soup. Would you like some? Join us for cards tonight, simple kindnesses that asked nothing in return, and 3 days a week. I gave my time to a foundation for seniors. I sat with men and women whose children had tried the same tricks. Papers slipped under signatures. Medical reports written with lies. Whispered schemes to sell houses that weren't theirs. I told them, you are not crazy. You are not alone, and you can fight. Watching their shoulders lift, seeing hope return to eyes dulled by betrayal, that became my true reward. One evening, after class, the director pulled me aside. Margaret, she said softly, people listen to you. You've walked the path they fear. We're hosting a conference on elder rights next month. Would you speak? I hesitated, feeling the weight of the journey. The scars still tender, but then I thought of the letter from my mother. Her shaky words that had steadied me when I almost gave up. Others needed that map, too. I smiled. Yes, I'll speak, because my story wasn't only survival, it was a guide. And tomorrow, others would need it. The envelope arrived without warning, her handwriting on the front, familiar yet foreign now. For days it sat on the table, untouched, like a sleeping animal. I wasn't sure I wanted to wake. When I finally opened it, the words spilled heavy and uneven, like someone who had rehearsed the truth too long. Mom, I don't expect forgiveness. Therapy has shown me the ugliness of what I did. I used you, lied about you, and nearly destroyed you. It wasn't desperation. It was selfishness. I stopped seeing you as a person and treated you like a resource. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I need you to know I finally understand. There were no excuses. No blaming Richard. No hiding behind stress. Just the raw, bitter outline of a daughter who had finally faced herself. For a long time, I sat in silence with the letter on my lap. The ache in my chest was real. Grief for what we had been. Grief for what we would never be again. And yet, beneath the ache, there was calm, because forgiveness, I had learned, is not reunion. It is not opening the door again to those who once set fire to the house. Forgiveness is release of anger, of poison, of the weight that keeps your own heart chained. It is peace, not permission. So I wrote back, only once, and only with the truth. Grace, I believe you are sorry. I'm glad you sought help, and yes, I forgive you. But forgiveness is not the same as trust. I wish you healing, but my life is now lived in peace without you. Respect was the bridge we needed, and you chose to burn it. I cannot rebuild it for you. Take care of yourself, and know that I will do the same. It was a gentle letter, but also a final one. Boundaries written not in anger, but in stone. I sealed it, sent it, and felt a chapter close, because I finally understood what my mother had once whispered to me in her final days. Love without respect is just leverage. Some stories end with a door slamming. This one ends with a door closing gently and locking from the inside. Here's what the road taught me. True love protects. It doesn't hide papers in folders or turn your name into a transaction. It doesn't call control care or theft help. Love stands beside you in daylight and says your name with respect. Boundaries save lives. A boundary is not a wall against love. It's a gate that only opens for it. When someone calls your self-respect cruel, they're hoping you'll forget who you are. Don't. The day you draw a clear line is the day the fog lifts. Dignity is non-negotiable. You can sell jewelry and time and sleep to build a future for your children. But your dignity is not a form of payment. Keep it. Guard it. Choose it. Even if choosing it means standing alone for a while. If you're watching this and feeling that same quiet fear, if the phone calls have turned into questions about your memory, if "we're just helping" has started sounding like "give us the keys," hear me. You are not crazy, and you are not alone. Take notes. Keep copies. Tell the truth to someone who will write it down. Make your plan in daylight. You don't have to fight with rage. You can fight with order. And if you're a son or daughter listening right now and feeling a sting, good, let it be a holy one. Love your parents with respect, not pity. Ask before you help. Speak for them only when they ask you to. Remember that the hands that raised you are not a resource to mine. They are a history to honor. I learned that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. It clears your chest and steadies your step. But forgiveness is not an invitation to be harmed again. Peace can hold a boundary. Love can say, enough. Now I'll turn to you, the ones walking beside me through this story. What would you have done in my place? Would you have pressed charges? Taken the settlement? Closed the door? Or cracked it? Tell me in the comments. Not with anger, but with honesty. Someone reading your words might find the courage they need. If this story found you at the right time, if it helped you breathe, or plan, or simply feel seen, stay with me. Subscribe for more true life stories told plainly, with the lessons left in. On your screen, you'll see 2 more stories I think you'll want to watch next. One about a promise that outlived a betrayal, and one about the power of saying no once, clearly, forever. Take what you need from this, and leave the rest. Keep your documents in order. Keep your head high. Keep your name yours, because love doesn't steal. Love doesn't silence. Love doesn't put you away to make life easier. Love stands in the light and lets you stand too.